Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of our LinkedIn Live series where we talk about mental health and how it affects staff. We're coming from a dialogue perspective where we want to layer the conversation and add a lot of equity and soul to this, where we have input from different people from all sides of our organization. We're expecting some people to pop in and out of this conversation, and it's just an open forum to highlight the specific aspects of mental health, adversities, challenges, and support mechanisms that we can use to continue to prop up the people at the front lines of care. If you haven't joined us before, you're not familiar, my name is Darian Wilkinson. I'm the CEO of the Wilkinson firm, and we have Mike Kipper. Feel free to introduce yourself, and we'll go down the line a little bit.
Good afternoon. Mike Kiphorn. I'm one of the co-founders here, and together, along with Darian and the rest of the team, we've been building something amazing here, something that supports mental and behavioral health providers directly. My background that brings me here is HR. I've worked in the field for well over a decade, led a small team, and really have handled all aspects of HR as a function and as a strategic partner. So definitely looking forward to the conversation here this afternoon about empathy in leadership. Yeah, Allison, you wanna take it from here?
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike. Allison Adams, I'm our Chief Operating Officer, and we have a pretty amazing team. This LinkedIn Live series has been a great opportunity for us to talk, share, listen, and exchange ideas that really help support our client partners in the mental and behavioral health space. And I think we can't talk enough about how we help, support, guide, coach, direct those partners. And this today's topic is just one of many. My experience is operational leadership, everything from, sales and marketing and coaching and leading people. I'm passionate about what we do and the space within which we work. And I strive to help our organization be the best it possibly can be, and all of our team members contribute to our overarching goals and really making a difference. So, Jillian?
Absolutely.
I'm Jillian Utesh, our VP of Sales and Marketing, and it has been such a joy to join the Wilkinson firm and help bring a voice and a light to mental health. I knew nothing about mental health or HR or the two together, and they are both such important topics to not only talk about, but to understand why they're important or why they're important together. So I've loved helping to bring this out, talk about it more, bring visuals to it, and help spread the word, because these are things we should be talking about a lot more and understanding more specifically what we're talking about. So I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Tanasha?
Good afternoon. I am Tanasha Coleman, the Vice President of Human Resources and Client Success with the Wilkinson firm. I am new, so this is actually my second LinkedIn Live, and I'm very excited. So my background is healthcare operations and human resources, and definitely being on the mental health, behavioral health side is very important to stress the empathy that's needed for the clinicians, the mental health breaks that the clinicians need due to, the intake of the trauma from their clients and their patients. So I'm very excited to get this conversation started and to hear, feedback from others on how it affects their lives and, how we can be of assistance and collaboration in helping to beat this, hopefully.
Got you. Thank you. And we have, last but not least, Miss Anise Bradley. Introduce yourself. We're just going around the room a bit.
Well, pleasure to meet you all. Well, Miss Lane, pleasure to meet you. My name is Anise Bradley. I am the Vice President of Business Growth and Client Strategies for the Wilkinson firm. And I am just looking forward to this conversation today. Thank you.
Absolutely. So Miss Lane was invited by me. She's one of our qualified professional at large, experienced in TCM, and has been on the front lines for 20 plus years. So it's good to have somebody who was actively interviewing with one of our clients for a role, chime in and provide their perspective as we develop this topic today. So Miss Lane, you'll have an opportunity to chime in where appropriate. Feel free to jump on into the conversation and participate as much as you like.
Thank you for
So
inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for popping in. Um, so open, right? We keep talking about business in general, always talking about people over profit, right? What does that actually look like? I mean, a lot of people talk about it, but what happens when a staff member is struggling? So when morale is low, how does that impact revenue? When people are burnt out but still showing up, how are we supporting them? So this conversation, we're going to build it from real experience. We're going to talk about, a few anchor points when it comes to empathy in the mental health field and how to, strategize around that, right? So to start, what is and what isn't empathy in leadership? And this is we're gonna start the open dialogue, but I'm gonna kick off with a few things. What is not empathy in leadership? Excuse me, I did highlight a few points here that I wanted to. So empathy is not coddling, right? It's not enabling. We don't mix those things. It's contextual awareness and decision making, right? It's not being soft, but it is being kind. And there's a fine line between that, especially when we talk about therapeutic services, counseling services, mental and behavioral health industry at large. It means being human and still accountable, right? The difference between sympathy, which is like, I feel bad for you, versus empathy, which is I'm adjusting how I show up based on what you're experiencing, right? And it's an important distinction. So my first question to the group at large: what's a moment when a leader truly showed up for you and they didn't really need to say a word, right? Who wants to start? Anybody jump on in. What's a moment when a leader truly showed up for you without saying a word? Tough one. I'll start. So for me, man, I think I was probably 17. I was on the grill at a steakhouse. First time on the grill at a steakhouse, guys. In the restaurant industry, busy, $4 million restaurant. You're the guy cooking the most important protein in the entire restaurant. I'm young. I'm a teenager, and you can overcook burned steaks. And once you start to do that, oh my goodness, you're eating at the meager profits, right? Steakhouses they're not making a lot of money. A lot of it comes from the beef selection, right? So I was on the grill sweating. I just burnt up my third steak out of like my first five. And when you do that, the entire restaurant knows you messed up because the manager has to scream out prio. So they say prio, and that means priority. It's short for priority, meaning that there was a mistake made and we have to correct it fast, right? I'm the only one on the grill. I'm alone. It's a Thursday night, which is particularly busy. And he came over. He stood by me. He took a fresh towelette and kind of put it in my back pocket. He helped organize my station. I was a little bit disorganized, and then he seen what I had on the grill. He grabbed the tongs and the spatula from me, and he just started helping me. Right? He didn't say a word, and he looked over. I looked at him. He kind of looked over at me, but then he kept looking back down at the steaks. And I just watched him get that priority out, right? And he didn't have to say a thing, but his body language, his calmness, it was helpful, right? It allowed me to settle in. I had a cup of water, came back to my station, and I was resettled. And that little bit of nonverbal empathy really showed up for me in that moment. So that's something that I highlight from my work experience that I think is important, right? Anybody else have anything with that I'd like to share?
Yeah, I thought of something, Darian. Reflecting back early in my career, I was a young store manager in an apparel company. And at the time, we had corporate secret shoppers that visited our stores. And those secret shops held a lot of weight in terms of the KPIs, in terms of bonus, in terms of how we were viewed. And it was a measure of how well we were taking care of our customers. And the short version is I was in the back room doing an interview, and the people that I had on the sales floor, 4 of them, earned a 0 on a shop. 0. And I didn't know what was going on. I had trusted that my associate manager, who's second in charge, was doing everything that he needed to do out on the sales floor. And the only reason I knew shortly after that secret shop was one of my team members came back into the back room and said, "There's somebody here to see you." So I walked out onto the sales floor, and the secret shopper had left the store but walked back in. which they never did. But the store was so well merchandised and put together, she was really impressed and thought, there must be a good leader here, but maybe something happened. I want to give him or her the opportunity to share my feedback. So she introduced herself. She showed me the zero all the way down. And I was mortified, knowing that I had the company's chief operating officer coming to visit my store the following week. I thought, well, I'm done. And I was so young in my experience, I just looked at it in terms of feeling like it was pure failure. And I was distraught. I called my district manager and, talked him through it. And, he wasn't upset, but he wasn't supportive. His boss, my regional VP, was one of the most important mentors that I ever had in my career. And about 4 hours later, he showed up in my store. And, he said, let's go for a walk. And so we went and sat on the bench outside the store. And here I thought I was in trouble or I was going to get fired. And, I was mortified also that I had disappointed him because I respected him immensely. And all he said to me was, what did you learn from that shop and how can I help you be better? And that changed for me how I, learned to approach difficult situations. I mean, the disappointment was clear. I am harder on myself than anybody could ever be. But he taught me that helping me look at it as a learning situation and coming up with a plan to coach my team was what was going to be the most important. And I have carried that painful but important lesson forward.
Thank you for sharing that, right? So that highlights the theme of the conversation in many ways when we're talking about empathetic leaders impacting us in ways that does wonders for our mental health, right? And it doesn't matter what industry you're in, from retail to hospitality to restaurants to behavioral mental health directly. It's impactful when somebody shows you that they care, not just with lip service, but they're showing up with real actionable nuggets for you, right? And they're helping you see things differently. Working together with you, it feels more collaborative. And then you start to save yourself. And through that process of saving yourself and shifting your mentality, you become stronger. And you never forget who helped you, right? Kia, how you doing? We were just, good to see you. We were just having a conversation centered around mental health, how empathetic leaders can help shift things for us in difficult moments, right? We're kind of going around the room. This is not meant to be a sit-in type learning session. You'll glean a lot for sure, but we hope that, everyone has an open dialogue, to share. Feel free to share it at any point in any moment. Mental health is not just an EAP flyer, right? It's about policies, pace, pressure, but, when it comes to adversely, there's something called toxic empathy, where leaders listen but don't act. And sometimes that's even worse, right? Are your managers trained to recognize burnout, or are they just reacting when someone's ready to quit? It could be a little toxic. And now we have a grievance, we have something to deal with, and all of a sudden all these ideas and strategies come about. But along the way, before we got to that point, there were several different checkpoints that we could have helped along the way. Allison, in your story, you spoke about the major checkpoint being, hey, when you got the final result, you were able to, reach out for help and support. And I mean, he all but took the Mary Poppins umbrella and flew to your store, right? No telling what he was doing, but he dropped everything, made you a priority. Well, even, in that, he wasn't your direct supervisor in that story, but imagine if he was, didn't take that care and attention to meet with you, then you would feel left out in the cold and not necessarily understand how to transform your perspective, right? Because when we're hurt or impacted, when we're dented in that moment emotionally or egocentrically, we don't necessarily I'm injured, I'm hurt, emotionally, I'm feeling something. I can't get past it right this second. I'm not playing with a full deck right now, right? I'm tending to my wounds. And then when someone helps you, gives you that hand up, now you stand straight, you start walking a little straighter, chest up, head held a little higher. You can see things for what it is. You know what, this was a setback, but I'll walk straight again. I will correct this, and with your help, we'll win, right? So that's me. That's a big part of my leadership style is, and I've learned that, right? I've ruined relationships being in leadership positions way too early, leading people 30, 40 years my senior, right? I've always been a manager and elevated to that role in some type of capacity since I was a teenager, but I haven't always handled it properly. I haven't always connected with the large workforce. Sometimes what I've done before is choose one or two people and hang on to them because I identify with them most commonly or easier. Injecting empathy into my style across the board for everyone is something that has elevated my leadership skills and allowed me to get the most out of the people I work with and make them feel as important as they actually are. So let's shift a little bit, right? The cost of ignoring empathy when it comes to burnout, when it comes to quiet quitting, when it comes to high turnover or high emotional labor with no emotional support, right? And let's name it. How many good people have you lost simply because leadership couldn't pause to ask, are you okay? Like, really, right? Tanasha, how many good people have you seen fall by the wayside in your HR career because no one stopped to ask them, maybe other than you, but you're part of a large organization, no one stopped to care, no one stopped to ask them how they were truly feeling?
A lot. And unfortunately, it's very, very common, especially among the clinicians, the admin part as well, but definitely the clinicians, because they don't get, the how are you doing? Are you okay? What's going on in your life type questions, or, do you need anything? You need pens. I mean, honestly, the simple things, just do you need, they don't feel heard. I've heard that a lot. They don't feel heard by their local leadership. But as long as they're providing the clinical services, leadership is like, okay, they're doing their job, so nothing must be wrong. And that's the furthest thing from the truth, unfortunately.
Yep.
They have low morale. So one person is not in a good space emotionally or mentally. It spreads like wildfire, It's going to the whole office or to the whole company or to their whole, even it can transfer to their patients as well, So even getting simple breaks in between clients, getting breaks, or I heard a lot, I need a mental health day. And
Right.
Unfortunately, a lot of organizations don't even have that as part of benefit package, Even
Yeah.
if it's like you either have PTO, sick time, vacation, but what if I just need a mental health day to de-stress, And plus, we don't look at what happens outside of work. Everyone is dealing with politics, with what's going on in the world in general, and it affects everyone differently. And
Right.
before we even start work, we're bringing that to work.
Right.
And we're not having an outlet to talk to anyone about that, let alone the trauma that our patients are talking to us about, So it happens every single day, and unfortunately it goes unheard because it's like, how do you fix it? And mental health being such a stigma, and it should not be, but so many people are scared to speak out about it. They're scared to admit to it. So when they do, they feel ashamed. So we have to figure out how to help the leaders of organizations and even help ourselves to feel strong enough and confident enough to speak out about it, first to recognize it,
Right.
and then to be able to speak out about it, or even just to mention it to someone, whether family, friend, or a coworker or a manager or something like that. And then it's like, okay, you're not going to them for the answer, but sometimes you're just going just to vent. And
Right.
sometimes you feel better, sometimes you don't, but at least you were able to get it out. And out is
Right.
always better than in, because you never know where it can end up. And just having staff that have left because of those things. But guess what? They're going to the next organization, and if that organization doesn't provide it, they're still stuck in the same mental health, burnout, stress,
Cycle.
meeting.
It's a cycle.
Exactly.
Yep.
So it's like, this is something that should be, it's like nationwide, but how do you get people to understand it? Because the stigma with behavioral health, mental health is still there.
Right.
I know that's a
Right.
different topic, but it's
It
that's
makes
where
it.
it starts. Yes.
Yeah.
and then it trickles down, but it's huge. It affects everyone. Everyone
Yeah.
has something going on in their life
Yeah.
that's a burden on their shoulders. Every person.
Yeah.
And it causes when you're going to work, it's still with you there, and it does
Yeah.
affect your work.
Yeah.
So how do we show leadership in organizations that they need to have something in place in addition to EAP? EAP is not a fix. It isn't.
No. Thank you for that. I mean, to be honest with you, that's why people hire our firm, right? Is because sometimes, they get too big to care. HR department is a lot of times 1 to 40, 1 to 50, 1 to 60. How can one person, you think about it like this, clinical caseloads are 1 to 8, 1 to 10, 1 to 15 at the most, right? And that's designed to be able to protect the person given the care. You can't be effective with a caseload of 30 to 40 people. So why would we expect our HR directors or HR generalists, coordinators, or business partners to be effective in that same mode, right? When a lot of times we act as the only people that care for them, right? And we have to do from direct care staff, admin staff, all the way up to presidents, VPs. Every employee of the company is our patient in a way, right? They're part of our caseload. We have to care. Their father died. We have to care. Their son had a birthday. They need to take off. We have to care, right? We can't turn a blind eye to what's affecting them. Their marriage, they let us know that they're about to divorce. One's moving to Missouri. She might be moving in the next 60 to 90 days. We have to care. There's a retention implication. There's a morale and support implication. Are they even stable enough to take a case when, we may need to hire, right? And so, yes, we care about what's going on in their life deeply. And these people are not dealing with substance abuse behaviors or behavioral or mental health diagnoses necessarily. But as a regular person, we have to meet them where they are. And so, yeah, it's a job, right? I mean, we have our caseload, they have theirs. I tell anybody it's not as easy as it sounds, right? Kia, you want to chime in a time where a leader showed empathy and made all the difference for you? You're on mute. Let me see. I see you talking, but I don't hear you. I don't hear you. I hear you now. Yeah. Yeah, just share a short story on a time where a leader showed empathy and it made all the difference for you. Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. And I mean, thank you for sharing that, right? And in that moment, I bet you felt seen, you felt like you mattered, right? So when somebody could just look at your face or look into how you react to something, and then they come in and they have a conversation with you and they're spot on. I know for me, that's always helped me feel like, you know what, I truly matter, right? I matter. I may not matter maybe to someone else who didn't notice it, but to this person, like I know if I leave or if I don't work here tomorrow, there's somebody who I'm always going to remember. Yeah. So I think the job of an organization is to link as many of those type of leaders together, so that way the sentiment shifts from that person recognizes me to that business recognizes me, right? And then when you do that at a systemic viewpoint, from higher up, it trickles down, and then everyone feels like, why would I leave this place? Even if the money is a little less than some other places, the benefits they're working on getting better at, why would I leave a place that feels like home to me? And when we say feels like home, at home, you walk in with a certain face, an attitude, a disposition, even a smell differently than you normally would, and people pick up on it and they care about you, right? So when we talk about feeling at home at work, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about not having to speak up, not having to raise my hand, but people already recognize when there's a problem, just how my shoulders position, how I'm sitting. I can breathe, easy or deeply, and people are gonna come to me, sit with me, and try to figure out what's wrong. And that's the main factor, that people say without saying. And what that is actually is creating a culture of psychological safety, right? And that's what we're talking about at a deeper level. It's you feel psychologically safe because you feel seen, respected, valued. that allows you to be more of yourself. That allows you to be more productive. Because wouldn't you give more if you understood that you had room for small changes that wouldn't shift the trajectory of your career, of your day? You wouldn't get rolled up if you had a bad day because someone there understood you, you know? We need to be building environments that staff feel safe to speak up, right? Ask for help or even disagree. Everyone talks about speaking up, but what if you're speaking up in opposition of what the organizational changes are? Do you have room to feel like you can disagree with the leader, still be respected, leave that conversation and still feel heard and seen? Because a lot of times it's only with the asterisk that hey, you're an agreeable person. Well, I'm a little grumpy sometimes, I've had jobs where my disposition wasn't great because I was upset that I even had to work here. Because I agreed to a pay rate. I knew I didn't deserve a position. I knew that I was overqualified for, and I had to do it because I had to do it, right? And so, yeah, I'm a little upset at myself for even having to go back to cleaning toilets or providing direct care when I know I could be a clinical manager, or being an admin assistant when I know I could be a peer support leader, or being a nurse where I know I can lead people. In those instances, what happens? Will someone care to even check on me? Will I make a friend? And then now I have a reason to smile. Empathy builds trust, and trust builds performance. And through performance, you build resilience, and that's how you get to the next level. A lot of people that don't enter empathetic career paths don't ever get to achieve as much as they would. Those people, I think everyone is built for greatness. Everyone is a genius at something. Right? It's just that you have to operate in your scope of genius. And people will not give their best if they're busy protecting their psychological mindset, protecting themselves from you as a leader, right? Shielding themselves off just to make sure that they have a job to come back to. So let's talk about that a little bit too. Let's unpack psychological safety and building a culture of that. Let's say, Anise, what are 3 of the most important points for you when it comes to psychological safety, right? For you to feel safe in the workplace psychologically, what 3 aspects must be a part of that company or organization?
Okay, I would say taking the time to understand what's most important to me, feeling valued, appreciated for the work that I do, but most importantly, having open communication. The work environment or the culture has to be to where I feel like I'm coming to work and I can complete work, and when it's time to go on vacation, I'm going on vacation because it's time for vacation, not because I'm leaving because I'm stressed out, I'm tired. So it has to be a very, very good work environment to where I'm comfortable, and everyone else is also in unity in that comfort as well. So that would be
Okay. So what I'm hearing is work-life balance is important, right? Also, team unity, cohesion, and team chemistry. That seems to be important. And then able to compartmentalize and be understood from a value standpoint, right? Jillian, talk about. You're a leader in our organization as well as other ones. Give me 3 most important parts of any work culture that will help you feel psychologically safe.
The environment not feeling toxic, that what you're working on, you have a clear understanding of what you're doing, how it works with those around you, and that you're able to kind of get the tools you need. And you're not over here just kind of like, da, 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 I think you're doing the right thing. And then they're like, oh, can you believe what she's doing? Why is she doing that? And you have no idea that you're just on an island by yourself.
Yeah. Okay, that's important. You want to know that your work is impacting, right? That you're doing something meaningful, and not just, like you said, going down a road that no one appreciates, right? Mike, what you got, man? Psychological safety at work. What are some important aspects of it?
Yeah, so in addition to what's been said thus far, I think just having the opportunity in place to be real and have real conversations with your leader, regardless of the level in the organization we're in. We all have a leader, and that connection, I believe, is one of the most important, and that's oftentimes the leader's responsibility. It's not often the case where the organization is telling each and every manager and leader, you've got to meet with your person these days. I mean, sure, it can be a suggestion, but ultimately it's the leader, and in that environment, to create a space where I can feel comfortable just speaking my mind, and yeah, perhaps even disagreeing. That takes a lot of courage at times to disagree with your direct supervisor. But if it's done professionally, respectfully, and you have that relationship, both parties can learn a lot. So I think that's critically important. And then that just cascades throughout the organization. So in that type of environment, I would find myself likely being able to have similar conversations with my peers and coworkers, where we have that comfortable space.
Yep.
And whether that's in team meetings or just day to day, just open and honest communication.
Yep. Yep. I think you highlighted something important there, and it's really hard to tear away from. Even I know I have to keep the conversation moving. When you're able to disagree with a leader or your peers and not feel as if you have just fractured or broken something, right? Like you don't have to feel like you have to clean up the pieces, call them after the meeting and explain why, and your intentions and everything. Isn't that such a wonderful feeling? Like how much more innovative is an organization that facilitates disagreement, right? We're not stuck at whose idea was it and why. You can say a thing and even disagree with whoever's at the top, and it doesn't feel as if, okay, you'll be overlooked on a performance review, or you'll be overlooked for raises, or somehow it's going to impact your standing within the organization. People are going to look at me funny. Will I be invited to the next retreat? I mean, my budget for what I want to happen, and it's not, it has to be okay. It has to be okay for you to see things differently. We built our company, the Wilkinson firm, based on differing backgrounds, opinions, senior versus junior levels of leadership. I mean, all different types of aspects and walks of life. And, my job every day is to make sure that everyone feels like they can say a thing without it disrupting the entire, hierarchy, right? It's like it's okay. And so that's something that's really important to me. I'm trying to make sure that everyone feels like they can disagree. I don't care who you are in the organization. You can disagree with anyone and present a valid viewpoint. And even if you don't have a great answer as to why, it's okay. We can figure that out, right? And that's another thing what people hide behind is, okay, what's your reason? Well, you don't have a well thought out plan to support. We thought this out. So how dare you disagree, because it's so well thought out that in order to object, I want to see your plan. Well, I don't have a team. I'm just me. I don't know why necessarily, but give me some time. And Kia, what you got?
I think that was some great points. I like some of the points that Mr. Mike and pretty much everybody, Miss Tanisha, Miss Jillian, came up with. But one thing when I think about psychological safety, what comes to my mind is meeting people where they are. Because sometimes people can be at a level of credentials that just because I've read this book and I went through this book, they haven't actively been through it. So when we talk about clinicians, we got clinicians that started off because this is what they seen their mother do. This is what they seen their father do. So they just wanted to follow the trend, but their life could have been very well put together. They don't know what shambles look like. So even when you come to staff and, employees, they can have the credential to be there for that job, but you don't know what type of shambles they done been through. How many pieces they trying to put together. It don't matter what your selection, your title is. It's just that knowing that when I get to this place that I have to see every day, when we think about work, we spend half our life at work. The same amount of time we are at work is the same amount of time that we get home to rest with our families. Okay? Because you're going to be there for 8 hours. And then in them 8 hours that you go home, you got to split that up with your kids, your husband, you got to talk to a couple of family members. And that 8 hours kind of chopped up when you get home
Yep.
because you have to give, you got to pour more out into somebody. So when I do at least get the work, I could have been a wife that get beat every time I go home. Every time I go home and my husband get off work, he abuses me. And then when I come to work and I see the beautiful faces that I got up happy and chipper, all I want to hear is, "Hey, Kia, how you feeling today?" Or, "Kia, can we sit down and have a coffee this morning? Because you don't know how long I done got whooped last night." So I think that we should kind of meet people where they are at. Stop being so judgmental and let the workplace be a safe place, because sometimes that's the only safe place that we got. We can't go sit in the car because somebody knocking at the window. "Come in the house. What's wrong?" So when we get to work and we get to that small department, we just need somebody to say, "Everything all right? Let's go down here. Let's go in the timeout room." Not where another phone is at. You hear the phone ringing, somebody calling our name. "What's wrong?" "Well, I was up for 6 hours because the baby was throwing up. He was asleep. He was drunk, so he didn't want to get up and take the baby to the hospital. When I got to the ER, it was packed, so I never got to sleep. I just barely brushed my hair this morning."
Wow. Yeah.
So I think about
So
meeting
that's
us where we at. So psychological safety, I'm glad that you brought that topic up, because I have to remind myself that every day that I get up, I am trying. And that's the biggest thing you can ever do is try.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for adding that layer. And I think they call that like trauma informed care, right? Where a clinician is not only practicing her modalities, but has been through certain things. And that's why programs like peer support or community groups that focus on people that have been through recovery on the other side of it, and is now offering addiction counseling, like the AAs or the narcotics or stuff like that, is important. And some of the most impactful work that we see in this industry. Speaking of that, Jennifer, would you like to highlight the importance of trauma-informed care and how it impacts psychologically safe environments from?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, talk about that.
Okay. Well, I love hearing what everybody has said, but feeling psychologically safe. I've worked in so many different arenas, kind of centered around mental health and substance abuse. And thankfully, I had a supervisor over the span, kind of maybe 15 years, that was always advocated for me. And while y'all were talking, I just kept hearing the word loyalty, and kind of non-biased, even though I was her kind of protege. She really stood for something and was able to give me suggestions and would call me out, but did it in a graceful manner if I needed to be, but never shamed me or anything like that. But in the case of trauma-informed care, we don't realize that people really go through stuff, and we're all carrying things. And I wrote down the word greeting, because being mindful of when you walk in the door and the first person you see, we just kind of go through the morning and punch in, or however you go into work, and you kind of have in your mind of what you're going to say or do for the day, but really being mindful of the people that you're going to be with for 8 or so hours, and acknowledging that, like, I'm not sure who was just talking about the abused wife. That was such a great example. It opens your eyes, and I don't know much. I know about trauma-informed care. I just, I don't know how to kind of link that to what, other than trying to stay mindful of how do I want to be treated, to start my day. Do I want to, being in groups, I love groups. I used to love meetings. Every week we'd have a meeting on Thursday, and I just loved the meetings. People thought I was crazy, but I think it just was a form of feeling a part of something and being unified with the group, and it's part of our identity. I don't know. It just felt good.
Yeah.
Weekly supervision, same thing. I love that. AA and NAs and groups like that, I think they're so helpful.
Yeah.
Some people, their identity is tied to negativity and negative things, and if they can be part of something that has togetherness and y'all agree on some major topics, you have a tendency to feel more safe. So I love this topic, feeling psychologically safe, especially in the workplace. It's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you for sharing, Miss
Thank
Lane.
you.
Really appreciate it, and I'm glad you joined us, and I'm glad you are listening in, and seems like you're writing stuff down as well. So that's awesome. I think psychological safetiness is a subtopic of mental health, and but also an important topic, right? I mean, we could stay on that one little gap right there. We could plant our feet there for the next 3 or 4 hours and go on all day about the things that make us feel psychologically safe. So I know for me, you brought up a good point, Miss Lane. You talked about team, right? And when you think about a team and you think about sports where teams actually generate revenue based on the performance of the individuals, right? So what happens is, no matter which team you're a part of on which stage, Pee Wee football all the way up to the NFL and everything in between, people wear the same uniform and people identify themselves based on similar colors, right? And the reason why psychologically is because when you look over and you see that black and gold and y'all are all wearing that black and gold and you're wearing the same uniforms, it helps you quickly engage mentally and makes you feel more safe. The more of that color you see around you, the more safe you feel, right? And so even when we talk about team meetings and we call them huddles, because they are that, right? And Jennifer, you spoke to it. You said I felt safety in those moments because I was a part of something. We just went out, we had a hard day's work, 8 hours, grueling. It was, it's filled with stories and traumas and all these different types of characters and people, but then they leave. And then it's just us. And we look each other in the eye, we dust each other off, and we straighten out each other's hair, and we feel better about what we just accomplished. And we're going to go home, we're going to say our goodbyes and come back and do it the same thing again tomorrow. And so building team chemistry definitely heightens morale, and it's a real thing. It really is. And this is why a lot of companies and schools institute uniforms for those very same psychological reasons, right? Now, when it comes to clinics, typically you don't see a lot of uniforms, but in hospitals, you see what? Scrubs. And you have designated colors that you have to adhere to based on where you are. Doctors are going to wear one color. Surgeons and doctors versus nurses, they're going to wear separate colors. And like I say, it's psychological in nature because when you see that color, you already identify yourself with safety. If I'm in a crucial or traumatic, stressful situation in the middle of a crisis, and I just see the red, the burgundy of my nurses, I might feel more safe, right, Kia? Similarly, if I'm a doctor and someone's bleeding out and I see all white scrubs rush in, I know I'm surrounded with expertise. I know I'm surrounded with safety. Right? How we do that in workplaces where we don't wear uniforms is we have a unified vision. That's the mental uniform. We get our language. When you come into our organization, you get met with our values, you get met with our language, our mission statement, and we unify mentally and lock in on one goal. So even in a remote workplace, we still share and wear the same clothes when we speak the same verbiage and language, when we use the same terminology, when we meet at regular intervals. And that's our uniform, right? We're unified. And so, it's really important. I guess we kind of got a little bit off track, but I love the way the conversation is kind of going. Miss Williams, do you want to add any color to the conversation in the form of leadership and empathy in remote and hybrid workplaces? How do you check in with your staff who you never seen in person? How do you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Go.
and thank you everyone for sharing your perspectives. I always love hearing the ways in which other individuals think and operate when it comes to these important topics. And one of the reoccurring themes that chime in my head is mindfulness and
Mm-hmm.
drawing back to the golden rule of essentially treating others how you desire to be treated. And then integrating that practice not only in the work environment, but also within your personal connections. And just taking a second to evaluate where you are as well as an individual with
Mm-hmm.
regards to your window of tolerance.
Yep.
And, stepping into environments that I heard some people also mention, psychological safety also looks like environments that are not essentially shaming you for taking that time off or putting that guilt on you that you may be leaving, because we should be encouraging self-care. That's a practice that's commonly mentioned in this industry, but when you actually see environments that uplift that practice to sustain the individual and keep them within their green window of tolerance, that's really uplifting. So I definitely want to thank everyone for sharing those perspectives, and I really appreciate all of the, comments and insights that have been shared today. I really loved hearing the fact that how do we unify ourselves as a team with no uniforms, that
Yeah.
unified mission. So, yeah, I definitely appreciate this.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It's important that in remote workplaces or hybrid workplaces that, when we log off, we all know that and believe in our hearts and have trust for one another that, hey, we're all doing the same thing that leads back to the same place, right? So you guys know that, hey, even though I haven't heard from Darian, I know he's doing something productive. And when we meet next Tuesday, next Wednesday, tomorrow in an hour, he's going to be able to share about what he's done. And I know it's going to be juicy. I know it's going to be great. I know he's being productive, right? And I want you guys to view me that way. And I do view the team members that's a part of our organization in a similar manner where it's like, hey, even if I haven't heard from you, even if you didn't answer the phone or you didn't respond to my message or email right away, I know on our next cadence or connection, man, you're going to share, and what you've done, even if it doesn't show up in tangible money and register right now, I know that what you've done and who you are, it matters to the overall, right? And even if you're not feeling like you're being productive, I mean, every day that we wake up and we agree in unison and we, go out and set our goals on the same community, based partnerships that we're seeking out at organizational level or whatever your organization is doing, Kia, Jennifer, whatever we're doing, that the team that you have behind you is equally as productive, right? And that's a place where you're eager to connect. You're going into meetings, you're feeling energized. What new things will be shared today, right? What new initiatives will be passed? What challenges or successes are people facing? And I'm eager to share what I'm working on. And that live engagement just helps team camaraderie, morale, productivity, and it all impacts mental health. It really does. So, we're about 4 minutes to closing. I really appreciate it. What I want to go around the room to everyone with this closing reflection question is say that if we ask your team right now, either that you're working with now or have worked with in the past, do you feel like your leadership gets it? What would they say? And that's something that we can reflect on briefly, but then I would like to hear what everyone's response is. Allison, you want to start?
Sure. I've worked in both environments. So I've worked for leaders that don't get it and have created toxic work environments and, see people as a means to an end. And I've worked for true servant-based, empowering leaders that understand the importance of every single person, what they bring, building an environment of trust and respect and understanding and working together towards a common goal. And that's how I've worked to align myself as a leader.
You feel like the people that work with you would say about your leadership? Do you feel like they say that you get it?
I believe they would. Yes.
Good. All right. Cool. Tanasha?
My answer is honestly similar to Allison's. Some of my past employers did not get it at all, especially on the behavioral health side. A lot of the clinicians were in recovery. A lot of them relapsed while working. So they did not get it, and it was truly the billable hours. That was the most important thing, the billable hours, unfortunately. But I took it upon myself because I had a great relationship with a lot of people, and some of them, for some reason, I still never figured out why I felt really safe to come to me and tell me certain things. So I made it a point to ask. If I saw anything different, to ask. If I thought they were quietly quitting, to ask. Ask what's going on. And sometimes that saved the person, sometimes it didn't because they're too far gone. Leadership in the past, some of it has been great and they try to catch things up front. But just recently, no. It was like I said, a means to an end. The dollar amount was the most important. And like I said, I try to make myself ask people questions if I see anything that's just different.
Okay.
And I appreciate when people do that to me as well, and I just don't realize that they can tell. But just being able to know that they do tell, it makes a difference as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're about a minute in, going to go 15 seconds each, kind of rapid fire. Mike, what you got?
Yeah, so I think back to my first role coming out of college, and the company in which I was able to work for. The owner, the founder, was well beyond working day-to-day operations. You know, there was a president and CEO that took care of that, but he was present on every day. He had an office without a computer, which is a beautiful thing, but he spent most of his day just walking around. And this was a company of 500-600 people. And myself, you know, I was in a department of 10 and just doing my day to day, and just having the opportunity to have the founder, the owner, stop by my desk and say, "Hey, how's it going?" No, it wasn't a long conversation, but that just spreads. It really does, and that's something that really has lasted with me throughout my career, and hopefully serves as a model for not just myself, but just take the time to care.
Got you. Jillian?
Yeah, I feel like we all have to work to pay our bills or entertain ourselves, whatever your motivation is. So we may as well enjoy it and have fun while we're doing it. So I try to be the type of leader that I would want to be working with, whether it's because someone has to have a job or because they choose to have a job.
Yeah. I mean, you do great. I tell you, you're fun, you're happy, you're energetic, always high energy. Love it. Jennifer, did your last leadership get it?
Yeah, pretty much, yes. My leadership got it. I would say that there were a couple of spokespersons that were employees that were bold enough to state the kind of the feelings of the other staff members. So I guess in a way, they didn't get it because there were a couple of people that were bold enough to say what was really going on. So that's important to feel like you can say something, ask questions, and not be afraid. You know.
Yes.
And that's real important. I've worked at other places where the leadership got it, and it was just like family. And so it's good to have worked in both, I guess.
Yep, absolutely. Anise?
Okay, so and I would just say in my last role, you know, it's kind of difficult to determine if my leadership did get it or did they not, you know, because we were trying to have a culture where it was inclusive, it was diverse. However, each time there was an issue that was found, there was a policy put in place. You know, and then, you know, it seems like they were just trying to satisfy everyone. You can't do that, because what about all of us in the organization who have to, you know, we're subject to change, but it affects us all in a great deal in our work, communication. Leaders, you know, they felt like that was the best way to lead. And really, they were not connecting with the employees, just coming to us to say, you know, what do you feel? It was more like a round table, you know, I'd submit in a Dropbox what it is that you would like to see, no conversation with the team. So they were trying to work with us, but it was just the style on how to do it. So, you know, like, again, I can say I don't know if they did get it or if they didn't. And but, you know, that's, for me, it's just basically going to have a sit down with the team, say, this is where we are. Where would you like to be? And we work together to get to that point. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. Olivier?
Hi, yes, I love juicing, so I'm always going to throw in a fruit analogy somewhere. So I feel like when you go apple picking, there's a diverse variety of apples in the garden. Some, may look great in appearance. And after you get to testing a few, you get to see which ones actually truly have that quality that can nourish your spirit. And then you're able to then give that knowledge to others and essentially let them know what traits to look out for and how they can use that in their own, perspective and lens of searching. And so with that, I'd like to definitely say that I'm grateful for the opportunities I've had to learn from individuals that I feel like have enriched me professionally. And with that, I'd just like to carry that energy on to the teams that I collaborate with. They would definitely describe me as a cheerleader because I love to uplift. So with that, that is definitely my stance on it.
Okay, okay. And do you feel like the leadership that you work for or with currently now gets it?
I would definitely say there are ebbs and flows, and we can only hope for the best in everyone we work with.
Diplomatic answer. Okay. Kia, does your leadership get it?
She sent a note in the chat that she's got to head to
Oh,
another
okay. No, you're fine. You're fine. Thank you for joining. I can't hear you right now. Okay. All right. Connie, does the leadership you work with or have worked with most recently, do they get it?
So this is actually a really good question because I would say no, they didn't get it, right? The one thing they didn't do is they didn't check in. They didn't check in to see where I was. It's funny they were talking about psychological safety because I actually think that's the foundation of what a leader really is supposed to do. I should feel safe coming to you with a problem, a question, or even, something I did really well, right? So I
Right.
want someone who's going to empower me, but also someone who's going to take my concern, listen, even if they don't agree, right?
Right.
Follow up, get me some answers, right? Get me some training, do something for me so I know that you are listening. And I actually had a wonderful leader. She's my role model. The one thing she first did is she always made sure that she connected with me on a personal level because this is all about relationships. So
It
if I
is.
don't feel like I have a relationship with you and a good one where I know you have my back, I'm probably not going to share. So I think
Yep.
the one thing I always try to do is establish a little bit of a personal relationship in terms of I want someone to know that they can trust me and that
Yep.
I'm here to do something good for them. I'm here
Yep.
to empower and support them. So I
Yep.
had a wonderful leader who did that, and she would take up concerns up to this like as high as she could, even if she didn't agree. And to be honest with you, she always came back with an answer, even if it wasn't the right answer that I wanted. But she
Right.
always came back with an answer. She always followed up, and she always
Yep.
made sure that my voice mattered. And I'll be honest, that was probably the best leadership team I had been on, but I
Yeah.
also felt very safe even with my teammates because we all knew that our voice mattered.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I think that's something that I try to consider every time I meet with someone is what am I? How can I help? Not what can you do, but how can I help? So I think again, it's really important to empower people, but to know that you are listening and you're gonna help somehow.
Got you. Got you. Makes a lot of sense. Just to let you know, Connie is our HR legal consultant out of Chicago.
Hello, everyone.
She is brilliant, employment law expert. So really happy to work with her. We'll learn more about her as we go. But
Yeah,
thank you guys. Today has been a
thank you.
very intriguing, interesting, and powerful conversation centered around, empathy in the workplace, the mental health impact of it. We talked a little bit about relationships, right, and psychological safety, and also the things that makes us tick, and when leaders pinpoint those, the way it makes us feel. So thank you everyone for joining. I appreciate. I know my invite was last minute to some, but we'll see you next Friday, and have a great rest of your day and leading into your weekend, and see you next time.